How many of you know what Cisco system does? Perfect, so I don't have to explain it. If you maybe put a little bit in the context what Internet of Things opportunity is, when you think about the waves of the networking and connectivity, in the 90s we were looking at solving the problem of connecting the devices and people in the office, right? The killer apps were email and of course internet. And we standardized over time, moving from many, many protocols. We standardized on IP and Ethernet and Wi-Fi and so forth. Then in the year 2000s, we started focusing as an industry around solving this problem, right? That's where we were, and I think we're still working on those, which is how we get the mobile devices in the hands of consumers and in the hands of the business people. But there's a third wave, and this is why we're actually having this discussion, which is, I believe, is really starting at its earnest this decade, which is around connecting things to things, things to people, and so forth. And we at Cisco have identified Internet of Things as a major, major initiative. And you can ask why now? And I think we all know the trends, the IT and the OT convergence, the move to the standards. We've heard throughout the discussions over the last 3 days, the move to open standards. Probably even the most important, though, there are applications that require us to have these networking architectures. Let me give you a couple of examples, and some of them were actually mentioned in the earlier session. Remote management and monitoring. When you think about the oil rig, some of our customers are coming to us and saying, I actually would like to manage the entire oil rig from my headquarters, as if I was actually locally present at the rig itself. When you're running, let's say, 200 assembly lines on 200 bottling plants, you want to make sure that the quality of a product is consistent. Big data analytics. When you look at the oil rig discussion earlier, there are terabits of data coming from the sensors. And when you have even a 4G connection, it's not sufficient to send all the data to headquarters or to the public or private cloud. You have to start processing this data locally and make the real-time decisions. If there is, for example, 200 degrees centigrade reading from a sensor, you need to take an action. When you think about fleets and when you think about cars, preventive maintenance is a huge challenge for us. When you're running 100,000 vehicle fleet, you actually would like to know if, let's say, one of the engine elements is getting hot and you have 7 days to actually fix it before the engine breaks down. And of course, the factory automation we've been talking about for the last 3 days as well. So the good news and the bad news is everything is getting connected. We at Cisco actually established that out of all the devices that we're using in our work or lives, 99.8% of these devices are yet to be connected. But connectivity is just the first step. We actually want to solve these application problems that I've mentioned. So what are we doing at Cisco to help industry solve it? Of course, we're coming up with and we've been in this business for many years, a lot of ruggedized networking products, switches, routers, wireless security devices, and so forth. But more importantly, we're developing the platform, the architectures. We talked about security, and there was a great panel on Monday around the security, where it's not sufficient to just have a bunch of firewalls sitting in your plant. You have to have a security architecture that covers all aspects of identity, of threat defense, of preventing the bad people to accessing your network, or preventing people who actually don't know what they're doing, or they by accident connect to your network. Preventing the data to get out of the confines of your environment and so forth. So architectural approach is key. We're looking at distributed cloud capabilities. Not all the data can go to the cloud. We don't have a bandwidth. We don't have a latency required to send all the data to the cloud and back. You have to have a distributed cloud architecture. So again, looking at the platform, looking at the architectures is key. And the last piece is you know, when you think about IoT, it's a huge, huge change for the industry. The opportunity for us is not to change, not to improve gradually 1 or 2% of our capabilities, but to actually improve our productivity by 20 or 30%. So we're working extensively with our partners, and I actually believe it's a great opportunity for us as an entire industry. Not whether you are an end user, you're a vendor, you're an integrator. All of us can participate in this, and we look forward to working with everybody in the industry to make the vision a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Maciej. Next, I'd like to ask Brian, if you wouldn't mind, just stand up and give us a little shot, Brian, of everybody knows your company, but how you can be serving industries, and especially how you can be serving these kind of remote locations that we've just seen.
Okay, is this on? Yes. Okay, so I won't ask if everyone knows who AT&T is. I'll start out first with a few statistics, just as kind of an FYI to kind of set the stage. And this is coming to you from an AT&T global perspective. Globally, last year, I believe roughly there were 150 million cellular machine-to-machine connections. The forecast for that by the year 2016 is estimated to be roughly 360 million cellular connected machine-to-machine endpoints. AT&T, from our perspective, we're seeing roughly 20 to 25% growth year over year. Last year, we were just over 15 million global cellular machine-to-machine connections. So the first question often is why? You know, what's happening? and I would say it's not just the manufacturing industry, it's every industry. And for the last 2 days, you've been sitting through these sessions, and you've been hearing terms like business intelligence and big data and data analytics, and we're all talking about that. And I'm not going to repeat that because we all understand the reasons why people are trying to do this. What I want to talk about is how are we doing this and what's involved? Why is AT&T a leader? Why are we a global leader by pure volume of what's happening? And as I go through that, I want to talk about what's changed. What has changed to lead to that kind of growth? And I'll point to 4 things. The first is the cost of deployment. Even 5 years ago, it was cost prohibitive to do this kind of a thing, to provide wireless connectivity to devices in this magnitude. Today, it's not the case. It's very cost effective to put together a business model to accommodate the need and to satisfy the need for whatever the reason. The second I would point to is time to market. I'm an old telemetry guy. I'm an engineer for a lot of years, and I spent a lot of time in the field. And I know that putting up a fixed private wireless system, I know how much time that took. I also know how many development hours it took to develop the SCADA to go along with that. With the tools we have today and the technologies we have today, the time to market, the time to take something from concept to proof of concept is very, very, very quick. And for me, that's most important. And when I talk to my customers, they can't have a 3-month span when they want to start adding devices and reaping the benefits of business intelligence. It can't take 3 months. It has to be nimble. It has to be very quick. The third I would point to is just distribution, effective distribution methods. And I'll go back to SCADA from 10 years ago. Companies were great at collecting that telemetry data, but how it was distributed was often a little bit broken. So the methods we have, whether that's through mobility or just enterprise integration, the methods for distribution of this information and the tools and the technologies we have available, we've come so far. And that really lends itself into the time that it takes to come to market with that. And the last but not least, the fourth point I would make is scalability. And with the figures I just rattled off there and the millions of devices, we've got customers coming to us saying, we want to connect a few hundred devices. We've also got customers saying, I need to connect tens of thousands of devices. So it no longer becomes a matter of slapping a radio onto an asset. Those days are over. Now it's effectively manufacturers who are interested in connecting in the interest of more granular visibility. They effectively become a carrier in their own, right? So they're coming and saying, hey, we've got customer locations globally, domestically, and we need visibility. And it can't be, it needs to be non-invasive to our customer networks. We want connectivity, we want wireless connectivity, and we need it now. So we provide the tools to allow customers not only to scale up to those high volumes, but the question was asked of me a few times this week, well, what about the small companies? You've got these enterprise solutions, what about us? Well, there's an answer there too. Scalability goes up and down. So from a cloud-based, virtual cloud-based technology perspective, we can scale these solutions to the need. So it's the cost, it's the time to market, it's the distribution, and it's the scalability by which we can do this today. So getting back to the why is AT&T a leader? Well, I'll give you two reasons for that. Number one is just that baseline technology, that global standard for mobility. I think 190 countries where AT&T has that wireless redundancy. And aside from that, it's the tools that we allow, that we provide, and I just talked through a few of the high-level concepts of those tools to manage these deployments and to manage them in a very efficient and in a cost-effective and a very quick way.
Thank you very much, Brian. And Grant, I think maybe the question that you could answer is, I don't mean to be offensive, but people might think your organization is a lobbyist firm. Can you explain to the industry what your role is in this space?
Thank you, Harry. Hi, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here, and thank you to Andy for his invitation. So TIA has been around for 80 years. We're a technology, high-tech manufacturer-based association of 500 members, of which one of them sitting here to my right. And I know that John Chambers reported good numbers just recently in the last hour, so that's very good. And we serve customers like AT&T, and so, but we're all the name brand smart devices that are in your pockets or you're in front of you. We're the underlying infrastructure network providers like Alcatel-Lucent, Corning, all the data. Database manufacturers and vendors and suppliers, Microsoft on down to JDS Uniphase that are in analytics. So 500-member companies that are in the high-tech manufacturing space. We are an advocacy organization based in Washington. In fact, we have a couple people in the White House right now being briefed on the executive order that the President introduced last night on critical infrastructure. And just to give everyone a heads up here that NIST, which is based within the Commerce Department, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, is surveying industry on best practices that are deemed critical infrastructure assets of the United States for voluntary standards and best practices. So just a heads up for all of us in the room. Certainly we will be participating in that exercise. So we are an advocacy lobbying organization for our membership. We're also unique in the sense that we're a standards developing organization representing the members globally. In the standards world, we're ANSI accredited, which is a unique stamp of approval. So we have 3,000 standards in the marketplace. You talk about market adoption. We have a lot of experience in that space. The Cat 5, Cat 6 cabling that your homes are wired with or your businesses are wired with, from there to the cell tower standards, to the antennas on top, to the guts of the network for public safety, for P25 for first responders, to wiretapping and working with the FBI. So we're well known in that arena, and our standards, because they're ANSI accredited, feed into the ITU globally. So why are we here? Well, we have embarked into the M2M space, and through a great partner, OPC, Tom has been a great strategic partner in helping to bring the automation networks closer together to the telecommunications networks, and we're seeing a lot of synergy there. It's my opinion, in our industry's opinion, in talking with Andy, that we need each other. We need to collaborate and share the best and brightest ideas. I think the Internet of Things is just the beginning of what we're at the tip of the iceberg. I mean, if you think about some of the issues that were discussed this morning in the mobility sessions, I mean, Dan Miller mentioned a lot of what we all know is happening in the marketplace, and the fact that the sensorization of things, whether it's your putting something in on your children's shoes or a chip in your dog, all the way to that bolt on the oil rig that needs to be tightened down. So we just see more and more of this taking place, and just really proud to be a part of this and to learn. Certainly have learned a lot, and you'll see more and more, in my opinion, of the telecom equipment vendors and suppliers within our group showing up at the table like I've seen grow just in the last couple of years. And so I think the challenges are security and privacy, and from a mobility standpoint, spectrum. And we are aggressively working to solve those issues and to learn from one another. And I think the fact is that standards are here to stay, and we'll see more and more work with OPC, I believe, and going across the different verticals of the information economy. We're so in tuned and tied into as far as the growth of our industry, as well as the innovation that's taking place in other parts of the economy. So I'll leave it at that, Harry.
Thank you. Okay, now this is entirely unrehearsed. We get to grill these people and turn the thumb screws a little bit. If you have a question, I'd love to entertain it, but I've got one I want to start with, if that's okay. And picking three people here, I think, it's easiest to pick on the phone company. Everybody picks on the phone company. So let me just note that maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I heard about these new connected devices and through the M2M technology, and the idea was there then. It sounded great, but as people tried to deploy it, it became kind of a moonshot. It was difficult. It took a lot of time. And then the other thing that I heard from a lot of people who attempted this was that the carriers like AT&T really didn't care about that kind of business because it was too small and they were really chasing the consumer business. So maybe, given that kind of feedback, not that that's the situation today, what I'm asking is, what is different today than that situation? Granted, that was maybe 8 to 10 years ago.
Okay, well, first off, I care.
By the way, we care as well.
I do care. And I touched on a few of the things that have changed, and a lot has changed. In terms of the practicality of being able to, for a mid-sized or a small-sized manufacturer, to deploy machine-to-machine with a cellular carrier. One thing that AT&T has done, and that's the team of folks that are here, is we've brought on built an organization of industry people who don't necessarily come from that carrier world. As I mentioned, I came from an industrial setting as an engineer. I've been in the field, I've been on the factory floor, and it's an understanding to translate perhaps carrier speak into industry speak. And I think we've all heard a theme we're hearing this week is the convergence of IT and OT. Whether you want to call that OT or manufacturing information technology, I've been a part of that convergence from both sides. And so what's changing, the technology is changing everything. And so when you look at the three common trends that are affecting the manufacturers that I deal with, that I work with, not only is it the kinds of capabilities from the hardware, and whether it's the device or it's that black box that goes at the edge, certainly it's the speed and the robustness of the wireless networks. I think Dan Miller in his presentation today talked about the annual investment that AT&T puts into building out that wireless network. I think it was $22 billion. And the things like spectral efficiency and the utilization and how we're able to utilize wireless technologies more effectively today than we were even 5 years ago. So from just the physical nature of the access media, that has changed. But then we throw into the mix things like, cloud-based technologies and the applications. And when you look at application platforms, where they are today versus where they were even 5 years ago, the capabilities, and I touched on the price point and the time to market, those things have all drastically improved. So there's a lot of things that have changed, and just think of 5 years ago, just think about the cell phone you were carrying 5 years ago. Think about how quickly things change. And I think the trend is that that's going to continue. That's going to continue. And so just to wrap up, just give one example, this concept of machine-to-machine or mobility. It's not just about the connectivity to that end device or that end gadget or that end black box anymore. Certainly for things like more efficiency, better visibility, enhanced service offerings, those all make sense. I've got customers who are taking it even a step further. Their intentions now are to build entire collaborative social communities around this data that they're bringing in. So bringing in the data and sharing that internally is not enough for them. They want to take it to the next step, and they want this social collaborative aspect to what they're building out. And why not? The platforms that they're moving forward with allow them to do that. So long answer, but I would point to the technology has really enabled us to be quicker to market and more cost effective to market.
Okay, Maciej, I just wonder if you would say something about what you've seen as a change since the M2M days too.
Yes, and I would actually agree with all the statements. We obviously work with all the MSOs, right? And I've seen this from the whole industry that the interest of the MSOs of going beyond providing basic connectivity. It's absolutely true that the technology has matured. If you look at 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi, all of these technologies are getting to mature enough where they actually are applicable to many applications. But more importantly now that we have the robust technologies here, the service providers, MSOs, are looking at building the capabilities like what we just discussed, where they can actually start offering managed services on top of those, right? And obviously the mobile use cases are obvious, whether you're looking at fleet or you're looking at emergency vehicles and so forth. But very much I think, again, we would see more and more of the service providers offering to you as an industry services that go beyond the mobility use cases, looking at mining, whether this is private or public LTE, looking at oil and gas, and obviously into moving into logistics as well. So I think we as an industry should expect AT&T as well as other players to be much more active.
Okay, I have a question from the floor for Grant, and that is, could you give us an update on your standards activity in this space, especially the 50 standard?
Sure.
We'll be here. We'll probably be here next year. So I would just phrase that in on kind of what people should look for in the next 1 to 2 years.
It's kind of related to what we were just talking about. So 8 years ago, that may be the impression, but today it's reality that the industry, the communications industry, does care, and the fact is that they voted with their feet. And through one of our engineering committees, TR50 has introduced, and we just had a press conference yesterday on a common architecture that goes across the telecom network to the automation network that people can get in, ease of use. And these two companies were actively involved in that, along with about 20 other vendors and OPC. So it's so the fact is there's a standard, a suite of standards that are, there's a common architecture that is access agnostic, which is really important and different for the industry that we're talking to from an automation perspective. And you'll see more work being done in that. It was just introduced, the specs were just introduced 9 months ago, and now we have a standard. So we've moved very quickly, and I think you'll see more issues taken on, building off of the common architecture, security and enablement and interoperability.
Okay.
So there was a press conference yesterday that had or introduced the press release that has the details of that.